We got confirmation on Tuesday that Brian Callahan is coaching for his job, and I'm going to tell you how he can keep it on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, on today's show, we're going to go over a big-time report from ESPN that I think confirms Brian Callahan is on the hot seat. I'm going to tell you what he needs to do this season to keep his job in 2026. Also, we're going to do a big injury update for the Titans, and shocker, L'Jarius Sneed may not be ready for week one. Also, Brian Callahan had an interesting comment about what roster spots are still up for grabs. We're going to go over what positions he mentioned and what guys are going to be fighting for those spots. And Van Jefferson bounced back at practice. I know folks don't want to hear it, but we'll talk about all of that. Before we dive in, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, now's the perfect time to become one. The Titans have practice on Wednesday. I'll be here to break down anything that happens coming out of that practice. The Titans have their last preseason game on Friday. I'll have a preview of that up on Thursday. And then Friday after the game, I'll be breaking down everything you need to know live immediately when the game ends. Next week, roster cuts are here. We're going to be doing a prediction for who makes the roster, talking about what roster cuts happen and what it means for the team. So much coming your way in the next few weeks. Perfect time to get locked in with the Locked On Titans podcast. But with that being said, again, a fantastic article from ESPN came out on Tuesday from Jeremy Fowler and my guy Teron Davenport, who's one of the beat reporters for the Tennessee Titans. Teron does great work, and we often reference his practice reports here on the show. But there was a very interesting comment in this that I think proves and confirms Brian Callahan is coaching for his job this year. And I have been saying that for months now. I have been saying that all off season long. Some of you guys think I'm crazy and that Brian Callahan isn't on the hot seat, and I think it's crazy to think that he isn't. And this quote from the article, quote, "There was consideration given to completely cleaning house and sending Callahan on his way along with Carthon. Multiple Titans sources confirmed Callahan and Carthon had a close relationship, and having the number one pick gave Tennessee an opportunity to bring in a new general manager, coach, and rookie quarterback at the same time. But the front office took an honest look at the talent on the roster and factored that into Callahan's record in his first season. The front office didn't lose sight of Callahan being one of the league's in-demand coaching candidates when the Titans hired him." Chad Brinker told ESPN, quote, "We wanted to give him that opportunity to grow as a head football coach. We felt like another year to grow into that, and we're going to need to see that growth. We believe in Brian. We think he's going to get there, so that's why he was retained." To me, it's pretty clear here that Brian Callahan is set up to be the fall guy. If Cam Ward underperforms, look around. Look at Frank Reich in Carolina. Look at Matt Eberflus in Chicago with their young quarterbacks when they weren't necessarily, well, Frank Reich was brought in to be with Bryce Young, but I'm just saying things can go bad. And the question becomes, do you stick it out for stability's sake? Because Cam Ward talked about that in the article as well, that he wants stability. Cam Ward discussed that and said that, the best quarterbacks have stability around him. So I get that. But as any of you guys know, if you're in a relationship or been in relationships, staying with the wrong person for too long, that can be a mistake as well. So I just found it interesting that the Titans are admitting here that they already considered firing Brian Callahan. And why would that happen? I've said all along, it's only logical. It's only logical to say the Tennessee Titans rejected everything that Ran Carthon did once Ran Carthon got to make decisions on his own. He rejected it. They all fired immediately. Get out. He was lazy. They didn't like the decisions, trading for L'Jarius Sneed, all the signings, all the moves, the draft picks, whatever. They're rejecting Ran Carthon's plan. And what was the most important move? What was the most important move that Ran Carthon made as general manager of the Titans? It was hiring Brian Callahan. And we were sold that Brian Callahan was Ran Carthon's perfect match. As they mentioned in the article, if Brian Callahan is Ran Carthon's pick, if Brian Callahan is Ran Carthon's perfect match, well, then maybe Chad Brinker didn't like that. Maybe Chad Brinker wasn't on board for the Brian Callahan hiring like Ran Carthon was. We don't know. We don't know the truth. The Titans will say publicly, we believe in Brian Callahan. We think he's going to grow. But they even said in that quote, and we're going to need to see that growth. We talk about the football team and the players, but it's Callahan who is under the gun. I think it is obvious that he's coaching for his job. He is on the hot seat, and if things don't go well early, he could be in trouble. Now, what does he got to do to keep the job? Because I'm rooting for Brian Callahan. He's a nice guy. I've met him personally. He's professional. He's respectful. He gives everybody the time of day. He treats everybody equally. He is a good person. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a good football coach. And I think for Brian Callahan, he's really got to show it this year in his area of expertise. Cam Ward is his meal ticket. I think that we could talk about a number of wins. But if Cam Ward wins Rookie of the Year, say Cam Ward looks good and wins Rookie of the Year and the Titans win 5 games, Brian Callahan keeps his job. If Cam Ward doesn't look as good and the Titans win 5 games and Cam Ward doesn't look great, Brian Callahan's probably fired. So you can't say what number of wins gets the job done. But here's one thing to consider. It would probably be pretty hard for Cam Ward to look great on the way to 3-14 or 4-13 again. So while you can't really put a number on improvement, I think 5 wins, if he gets less than 5, if he gets 3 or 4 wins, I don't know how you could sell that to keeping your job next year. But I think if Brian Callahan wins 5 games and Cam Ward looks good, he will keep his job for the semblance of stability. The roster is not good. That is fair. So I think 5 wins with Cam Ward looking good, that'll do it. Now, the opposite of that is if Cam Ward doesn't look good throughout the season, but I think if the Titans would have to win 7 games for that to happen. I think that if Cam Ward doesn't look that great, the Titans would have to win 7 games on the strength of their run game, their defense, their special teams, all the things that we have questions about right now. But just trying to examine the possibilities. You know what I mean? What would create a scenario where Cam Ward could not have a great season and Brian Callahan could keep his job? That's the only path. Now, I don't think that's a realistic path. I think the realistic path for Brian Callahan to keep his job is to win 5 or 6 games and have Cam Ward look like he is the future of the franchise and they know what they're doing on offense and they have a good plan going forward. Because if Cam Ward looks good on offense and Cam Ward has a good season, that means Brian Callahan's offense was more successful than what we expected, and that's good news for him since that is his expertise at the end of the day. So I can't necessarily say a number of wins, but I think 5 wins with good Cam Ward is about the worst that the Titans could do in the win-loss column, and Callahan still keep his job. Let me know how many wins you think Brian Callahan has to have to keep his job. But now it's time for some injury updates out of practice. Today's episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year, folks. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, I'm going to be playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And I think I'm pretty certain I am going to be firing up a couple Locked On Titans Guillotine leagues here that you guys should check out. And speaking of that, Yahoo is celebrating 28 years of fantasy football greatness by dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season right around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We took a look at that ESPN article that came out from Jeremy Fowler and Teron Davenport. Had some good nuggets, but I thought that little nugget there that they spent a lot of time on with Brian Callahan being on the hot seat and them considering firing him this offseason, I thought that was very, very interesting indeed. But we do need to focus on the here and now, and injuries obviously are a really important thing as we get closer to the season. You want to see the Titans be as healthy as possible, and we got what I would call a pretty disappointing update from Brian Callahan on L'Jarius Sneed on Tuesday. Before we dive into it, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But Brian Callahan was asked about L'Jarius Sneed's status for Week 1 against the Denver Broncos, and he said, quote, "We'll see." End quote. We'll see. I just want to say that L'Jarius Sneed got hurt in Week 6 of last year. That's the middle of October, the second week of October, maybe the third. Got hurt in Week 6 last year. And still isn't back. And it was a major quad injury. Apparently the quad's healed, but now it's the knee injury. And the knee injury is the thing that he was always doing maintenance on when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs that the Titans knew about. And I saw somebody, and I really do apologize that I don't remember, in my comments on Tuesday who said, it's funny how Mike Borgonzi started as the winner of the L'Jarius Sneed trade, but will finish as the loser. And you know what? I'm sorry, that has to be right. L'Jarius Sneed got hurt Week 6, compound injuries, still not ready, had a procedure in May. I continue to say this. He is the new ghost of the locker room. It used to be Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks was the ghost, all right? Treylon Burks may be on the team, but you can't act like Treylon Burks is on the team. You need to evaluate the roster as if Treylon Burks does not exist, as if he is a ghost. I don't mean to be rude and crass when I say that, but from a roster building standpoint, when the Titans went into this offseason, they could not look at their wide receiver room and say, well, we have Calvin Ridley, we have Treylon Burks, no, Treylon Burks does not exist for all intents and purposes when we are discussing building the roster. I say disgusting on accident because that's how it feels. But that is where L'Jarius Sneed is now. And it's funny because I tweeted on Tuesday when we got this update, I have nothing else to say about L'Jarius Sneed. They need to just operate as if he doesn't exist. And that's literally like, I have things to say. I'm talking. Shocker. I'm never really going to run out of things to say. But I have nothing new to say about Sneed. You cannot count on him at this point. I've been saying it throughout the offseason, and we've been hoping for a positive update. And is this guy even going to be ready for Week 1? And this is going to be a situation where, watch, this is going to be a situation where they put L'Jarius Sneed on injured reserve when they do roster cutdowns. Right now he's on PUP. They'll probably just keep him on a reserve list of some kind to manage the roster. And he may be out the first month of the season. I don't think that would be a shock if he went on IR for roster purposes and was out for the first month of the season guaranteed. And then from there, again, how could you possibly have any faith that L'Jarius Sneed is going to play meaningful, high-level quality snaps for this football team ever again? The most likely outcome is Sneed milks this injury, takes his money that he finally got, doesn't work hard to get back, doesn't care to come back as quick as he can, and the Titans cut him in the offseason just to cut bait and move on. And Roger McCreary's a free agent, and you're counting on Jarvis Brownlee Jr., and hopefully Marcus Harris can step. But, cornerback right now is looking like it could be the number one need for the Tennessee Titans next year. It's just crazy that we continue to draft. It's been 2 or 3 years now of wide receiver, cornerback, wide receiver, cornerback, edge, wide receiver, cornerback, edge, and it's just they don't really have any answers still. It's still wide receiver, cornerback, edge. At least offensive tackle is off the list for a little while. Let's see how Dan Moore plays this year. But it's just so disappointing. And I'm not even trying to be I'm smart, I have this insight about this. I'm just like you guys right now. I'm fed up with L'Jarius Sneed. It's so annoying and aggravating. I'm just sick of him. You know what I mean? I'm just sick of the situation entirely. It's annoying. But with that being said, better news. The 300-pound dude who tore his Achilles a couple weeks after L'Jarius Sneed got hurt is back at practice. Lloyd Cushenberry is doing 7-on-7 or 7-on-9 run drills. He took some participation in some team drills, according to Teron Davenport at practice. Lloyd Cushenberry may not be quite back for week 1, but I'm not worried about Lloyd Cushenberry going on IR or something like that where he's going to miss the first month. I think Lloyd Cushenberry will be back sooner than later. I think having Cush make his debut against the Denver Broncos in the elevation on the road against a tough defensive line, I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I'm sure Lloyd Cushenberry will want to get that revenge game against the Broncos. He'll want to be out there, but the Titans play at home against the Rams in week 2. I think you should expect to see Lloyd Cushenberry back by then. But it'll be interesting how quickly he progresses. Again, we got a couple of weeks here until the Titans take on the Denver Broncos. Maybe Cushenberry can be fully back and ready to go, but it's a good sign if you want that to happen, and I do want that to happen. It's a very good sign that he's already out there participating in some team drills right now. That's good stuff for Cush, and good to see a guy work as hard as he can to get back with his football team. Now, some other guys who we got to talk about injury-wise, we still have the 2 young guys on defense who can't get back on the field, and it's Kevin Winston and T'Vondre Sweat. Now, according to practice reports, Kevin Winston worked on a side field, which is great news, just getting some more activity, getting his body moving again after the Titans are managing hamstring soreness that came from the Achilles or the ACL recovery for Kevin Winston. But it's good to hear him making some progress. Brian Callahan said, hope to have him back in practice this week. I would like to see that. I mean, how many weeks in a row are you going to shut him down? Again, back to the point that I made when this first kind of bubbled up. Either the Titans overworked him, and now they just got to shut him down until they don't know when, or this was a stupid plan. Playing him for 2 weeks really, really hard, and then sitting him out for the next 4 weeks of the preseason and training camp doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But that's the Kevin Winston update. Now, the T'Vondre Sweat update. And I got some really good insight. I got some really good insight from you guys online. I have never had my tonsils out. I don't know about that. I asked everybody, is it normal? Because T'Vondre Sweat had his tonsils out weeks ago. I said, is it normal for a guy to be out this long for tonsils? I can't recall another time where I heard of an NFL player of any kind, any NFL player, being out for tonsils, having their tonsils removed. I just don't have any frame of reference point, and I haven't had mine out. Well, a lot of people responded and said, I had my tonsils out as an adult. I had my tonsils out at 23 years old. Studies, doctors showing when you have your tonsils out as an adult, infinitely more painful. 2 to 3 weeks even to recover before you can talk right, breathe right, swallow right. If you were to get hit in the throat or something like that, it could mess up the surgery and the recovery and blah, 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 blah. Great insight from you guys, and that's why I like to ask questions, especially medical stuff. If you guys been listening to the show for any amount of years, you know one of my favorite phrases is, I'm not a doctor, all right? I don't know the medical stuff, and I don't pretend to, okay? So that was really good insight, and I wanted to bring that to you guys and be like, it does seem weird that T'Vondre Sweat has been out 3 weeks now. And Brian Callahan said last week before joint practices with the Falcons that he was hopeful that he would get T'Vondre Sweat back last week. So now it's this week, 2 practices, Monday and Tuesday, still no T'Vondre Sweat. I know I had my tinfoil hat on, like, is he actually just not in shape and they're behind the scenes trying to get him in shape? But after hearing from you guys who have had this experience and know a little bit about it, it sounds like this is just more serious than I realized with it being tonsils. And let's let Sweat fully heal from something like that. That's no joke, man. So hopefully he can get back soon, and hopefully he's been able to stay in shape and move around a little bit, even if he's not able to practice, so that he's still in good shape when he does get back on the football field. Last thing, no Calvin Ridley at practice on Tuesday. No JC Latham left early after individual. Sounds like Latham has a sore hip. I think I saw, according to a report, it might have been Tehran or Easton Freeze. I think it was one of the two who reported there was just a little bit of hip soreness for JC Latham. They're being precautionary, and they should at this point. Joint practices are the heavy lifting of preparation. Now it's just the Titans fine-tuning in their own garage with their own team. So I'm fine with being, cautious. Let's hold Calvin Ridley back if there's any soreness. Latham, let's not play games. You're not getting as much from these team-on-team practices as you got from the joint practices and stuff like that. So with that being said, that's an injury update for you guys. Now we got to talk about another interesting comment, Brian Callahan, about the open roster spots that are still available, and it sounded like there aren't very many. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to the ball game with your family and friends? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. The money that you save on tickets, now you can buy more food, drinks, merch, even invite a bigger group. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually go down as you get closer to the first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals, a clear seat view, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. It's why I buy all of my tickets on Game Time. I bought NFL, MLB, NBA, WNBA, concert, comedy tickets, all on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Brian Callahan's hot seat and how I thought it was confirmed from the article from ESPN. We talked about injury updates, including L'Jarius Sneed going ghost on the Titans. Now I want to talk about another interesting comment that I thought Brian Callahan had at his press conference about the roster and the spots that are open. Before we dive into it, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. You got Vinny Iyer, you got Michelle Majuk, the data queen. They're going to make sure you're the most informed fantasy manager you could be and get you prepped for all of your fantasy drafts. Make sure that you check out Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Brian Callahan talked about how most of the roster was quote-unquote concrete at this point. He said that there are some open spots available, and he mentioned 4 positions, and I thought it was very interesting. He mentioned wide receiver. He mentioned running back. He mentioned safety, and he mentioned swing offensive tackle. Now, I was thinking the final linebacker spot, maybe the last couple cornerback spots, maybe some of the depth on the O-line or the last couple of tight ends. But for Brian Callahan to say that is very, very interesting. Let's look at it one at a time. Wide receiver, you have to think that there are 6 locks here. You have to think that. There's Jefferson, Ridley, and Lockett, the veterans. There's Io, DK, and Oliver, the young guys. And then maybe the last spot between Xavier Restrepo and James Prochet. That's probably what Brian Callahan's talking about right there. That roster spot is probably Restrepo and Prochet. And again, I'm begging the Titans. I know that Prochet is the best punt returner on the team. I understand it. I get it. But keep 8 wide receivers then. Do what you got to do. You can't let Xavier Restrepo get claimed by another team. You just can't let that happen. Swing tackle, that's definitely going to be between John Ojukwu, Ali Udoh, and Jalen Duncan. Right now, in my opinion, I know that Jalen Duncan's been all the rave, but based on what I've seen on tape, I think Ali Udoh is the best guy, but I do think Jalen Duncan gets the spot because the Titans are just smitten by his potential, I guess. Outside of swing tackle and wide receiver, running back was the very interesting one to me because, Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are going to make the team. You would think that Khalil Mullings, the Titans rookie running back out of Michigan, would make the team. And then you have Julius Chestnut, and they just talked flowery about Julius Chestnut in the press conference today. Brian Callahan was glazing him. So, if there's a running back roster battle going on, and they're glazing Julius Chestnut like that, and he's been around, and with Spears' injury, you kind of have to keep those guys. Are they saying that maybe one of Jamar Jefferson or Jordan Mims could make the team? Or is Khalil Mullings more in risk of not making the team? Is it Julius Chestnut versus Khalil Mullings? Is it Mullings versus Mims or Jefferson for the 4th running back spot? I don't know for certain. That's an interesting comment. That could be Chestnut and Mullings for the number 3 or all the other permutations that we just discussed. Very, very interesting to hear that. And then safety, you would think that they're keeping 4. Woods and Hooker, Diggs and Winston. They didn't bring Quandre Diggs in here to just be in training camp for a couple of weeks, I would hope. I would hope you wouldn't treat a veteran like that, especially the cousin of your starting quarterback, your franchise quarterback. I don't think that would be smart. So when he says safety, does that mean Mike Brown and Kendall Brooks, who I think has been very impressive? Are they going to keep 5 safeties? That's what it tells me. From these comments, it makes me believe they're going to keep 4 running backs and they're going to keep 5 safeties. That's what I hear from that. So will be interesting to see how the math plays out. I do want to say this. The Titans have the number 1 claim on waiver wire, and I know there's confusion about this, but it's not like your fantasy football where you use your waiver claim and you go to the back of the line. The Titans have the number 1 waiver claim the entire off season, and I think it's a couple of weeks into the regular season, and then it resets after a month of the regular season based on the new records after the first month. And then the worst team in the NFL after the first month of the season gets number 1, and it goes from there. But the Titans are probably going to claim 4 or 5 guys. Mike Morganzi was a part of Kansas City where they claimed 7 once, I saw somebody say. So, now, Brian Callahan did say in his press conference on Tuesday that there's got to be a balance between just claiming new guys and continuing to develop guys who still know your system. It's easier to develop them when they've been around than bringing in brand new guys, but it's a balance. But I'm going to do my 53-man roster prediction to start next week's shows right before Cutdown Day on Tuesday. And, I'm going to have people making the roster where their roster spots actually go to guys that the Titans pick up on waivers because they get to keep the number 1 pick and they can pick up as many guys as they want. So I would imagine that a lot of the depth spots that we're going to discuss, I'm going to predict guys to make it who are on the roster when the Titans actually get somebody in waivers. So keep that in mind when we talk about these depth positions at the end of the roster. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. I am putting out a film breakdown on the Tennessee Titans rookie weapons on Wednesday morning. It's got Alec Manor, Gunnar Helm, Chim Dike, Xavier Restrepo. I hope you guys enjoy that. But that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.